Anyway, we know what we're talking about.
Nobody else does.
What's that? What's that episode? You're listening to What's Next? Conversations with Boomers. And I'm Barb, your host. A lot of us, we boomers, that is, many of us are looking after aging parents, or we're looking after grandchildren, or we are looking after unwell partners. And this can be absolutely draining and cause all sorts of issues. So today, Denise, you all know Denise Torgerson, my dear friend who comes on often and talks about all these, what I would consider to be important topics. We thought we would talk about self-care versus selfish, because some people get them mixed up. So, Denise, welcome back.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's always an honor. It's more than a pleasure. It's an honor.
It's always fun.
Because Denise and I come from a different background. Although we both did a lot of coaching, Denise worked, if you've listened to the podcast, she worked in hospice and did a lot of work around grieving and led workshops and groups. And so the whole issue of self-care came up a lot. People having to look after dying parents or whatever it may be. So there was a need for Denise to teach about proper self-care. I worked with parents for many, many years and also had to talk about self-care and the need for self-care. So we're going to offer both of our experiences and what we taught other people about self-care. So, Denise, take it away.
I think the first thing I want to say is I'll just a quick story. I remember sitting in hospice talking to a husband. His wife had died in hospice months before, and he popped in for a bowl of soup. And I said to him, "So, did you call yourself a caregiver?" And he went, "No, I wasn't a caregiver. I was her husband." So the first thing I want to say is a lot of people don't recognize themselves as being caregivers. So, so that's just important. The languaging of that is a lot of people they don't resonate with it at all. So,
right, husband or wife, child, whatever, you are the caregiver.
That's right. Yeah, but they don't. And a lot of people consider the word caregiver sort of in a professional venue. They don't consider being a wife the same thing as being a caregiver. So just to say that when you're helping anyone, you're caring for them. And so that's the first thing I want to point out. And then the other piece is that to practice self-care, to look after yourself, but not to turn it into a to-do list. Often when people are looking after people at the end stages of their lives, or not even, when they're children, when they're putting something for self-care on your list can become burdensome. So self-care doesn't have to mean doing some big thing. It can be as simple as, every hour, put your hand on your heart and take a deep breath, Yeah.
Maybe give us some examples of people that you encountered during those workshop sessions, and you said to yourself, this is overkill, or they're taking on too much, they're going to burn out. This is an opportunity for me to teach some self-care.
I'll say I didn't do workshops. So just a little bit of history. So people would come into hospice exhausted, burnt out, afraid, you name it, all of those high anxiety emotions. And so we decided, seeing that we should start a group for people who are caring for people. And it sort of evolved from end of life care to Alzheimer's or chronic illness. So lots of people that came to our little group came for a couple of years, And so I wasn't so much teaching them as they were teaching me.
And how so?
Well, I don't have any letters behind my name. I'm not an expert or a social worker or a psychologist or any of those things. Most of the learning I did when I worked at hospice was from the people that I had conversations with at hospice. So, yeah, and it really continued into in the self-care piece or in the caregiver piece. So here's some of the things that happen. Loneliness, because as your person gets more and more ill, your world becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. So,
Drinks.
and then finding people that can relate to you and have those kinds of conversations becomes really hard. So loneliness is a big piece. But again, at the beginning, you said the difference between self-care and selfish, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think that when they do take the time to care for themselves, that they are being selfish. And so
Mm-hmm.
often conversations around that would happen for me when I was talking to people who were caring for people, that, you have to find ways to look after yourself so you can have enough energy to look after the people that you care for, right? I don't know the stat, but often the caregiver will die before the person they're caring for.
Well, it's draining.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I cared for my mother a lot in especially her last 2 years of life. And she was in a facility. She was in independent living, but required a lot of care, picking things up for her, making sure this and making sure that, taking her places, just being there for her, listening, talking to the staff. And there were times when I was absolutely drained, absolute, and I was fully aware that there are people doing this in their own home every day, all night. Um, it certainly gave me a window into how difficult this is. And did you find that there are people that, I must do this. I'm her husband, or I'm his wife, or I'm the daughter. I must be there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
What would your response be when you heard that kind of thing?
Gentle, always gentle. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. You don't really know the dynamic of a relationship. So, to make an assumption about something, putting my agenda on somebody else, would try really hard not to do that.
Mm-hmm.
We would say, we have volunteers that can come and sit with your husband or your wife or your mom or
Mm-hmm.
for an hour or two so you can go out and go shopping or go for lunch with your friends, or you can come to our group. Yeah, and sometimes people would want to do that and sometimes not. And sometimes the person who was not well would not want their person to leave.
Right. They wouldn't want somebody else. Right.
Yeah.
Luckily, my mom was happy to take, we had people come in for different reasons, and thank God she was, she welcomed it. But I know that there's lots of people who don't. Also, there's care available, extra care, but it costs money, and a lot of people can't afford that.
Mm-hmm.
But don't you find, though, that there are people that feel such a sense of obligation, and that sense of obligation carries on so long at the expense of their own well-being?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. No question. Yeah. Yeah. And I think again, it was never really my job to change somebody's mind, but I might offer different suggestions. So you don't want to leave, you don't want to go out. Are you taking time to nap when I mean, it's just like being looking after children. Are you napping when they're napping? Do
Mm-hmm.
you have a book? Are you able to take your 5 minutes of meditation a day? Just small windows of care instead of big chunks of care. Sometimes people are more available to that kind of care. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just like when we were talking about, taking those feel good moments, doing things that enhance your day. And what did we call that episode? We just did it a little while
I
ago.
don't know what we call it. I don't know.
I don't know what we call it either.
Finding joy.
Finding joy, right.
Yeah.
when we were talking about finding joy, this also applies when you're talking to people to sort of encourage them to take a little break. And it doesn't have to be a huge break, but yes, just going outside for 10 minutes and, breathing the fresh air or getting yourself a cup of coffee and just sitting, those little things that you can do during the day. Some things that you might suggest or we might suggest are not doable, because of the cost, or as you were just saying, that the person, and I know I've heard of people that are like that, they will not accept anybody else but a family member, which makes it really difficult. Yeah. So, and I'm a grandma, and there's lots of us that are looking after our grandchildren, and that's another way that we can burn out, and it's another reason for us to really practice self-care. I only do it 2 days a week, and that's what I had asked for. I volunteered when I found out my son and his wife were having a baby. I said that I would babysit 2 days a week, and I wanted a day in between. I thought it was really important that I say that, and they've been really good at honoring that. And the other grandparents do the rest of the time, or they do 2 days, I do 2 days, and then there's a day off. But I know how important it is for me. For one thing, I have my own life, and I can't devote my entire life to my children. And does that mean I don't care? I don't love my children? Absolutely not. But I have a life, and I know that they want to see me enjoying my life. And one thing that those of us that have grandchildren and care for them or spend a lot of time with them, these years go by faster than you can imagine, and they don't want to be with you anymore. So you want to take advantage of it, but you don't want to overextend yourself. And also, if you make it your whole life and they grow up and they get older and their friends take precedent, that's their priority socially, is to be with their friends. And in the meantime, you haven't cultivated your friendships, you haven't cultivated your hobbies, you haven't cultivated time alone because you've prioritized being there for your grandchildren 24/7. And in my own opinion, I think that's a mistake. And again, we are very, very lucky. My son and his wife are so lucky because both I and the other set of grandparents are available to do the childcare. So it doesn't cost them anything. But anyway, there's all sorts of different scenarios around this. But my point being that it's a wonderful thing to give time to your children and their children. It is wonderful. It's a gift. These moments are magical as well. It's very important. I mean, we maintain a life that's separate from that life.
Yeah.
It just is.
There's a coach in Prince George. Her name is Katie Sorella, I think is her name. Anyway, she talks about the difference between selfish and selfless.
Oh, that's a good one.
But in the middle, she calls it selfing. What are you doing?
Selfing.
How are you selfing? Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So I liked her. I like that little play on words. Yeah, I think, if you're not taking a bit of time to look after yourself, even if it's that cup of tea in the afternoon, pretty easy to, first of all, burn out just energetically, but also resentment,
Resentment
it's paradoxical to you have to put yourself first so you can put others first. Do you know what I mean? You have to be.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, I'll talk in a minute about how I taught parents that same thing, how important that is, and how everybody benefits. So I actually looked up the meaning of, I Googled, what is the meaning of selfish? And what it says is, selfish is of a person, action, or motive lacking consideration for others, concerned chiefly with one's own personal profit or pleasure. That's the definition of selfish, and I would agree with that. Would you, Denise?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So self-care Self-care is the practice of taking action to preserve or improve one's own health, the practice of taking an active role in protecting one's well-being and happiness, in particular during times of stress, doing things that benefit both your physical and mental well-being. And then I looked up a whole bunch of different examples of self-care, but I'll talk about when I worked with parents for many, many years. Worked one-on-one, and I did one-day workshops. I did series, and I talked a lot about looking after yourself. And I used to always say to parents, I know that you've been brought up with the notion kids always come first. And I would say, well, if you always put your children first and never yourself, then you're putting yourself at the bottom of your priorities, and your children, therefore, get a watered version of you. And I used to tell people they deserve to see the best of you. And although, we're having a boomer conversation, this, I think, applies to so many relationships and levels of care and kinds of care. I designed a course called How to Have a Life and Still Be a Great Parent. And, I used to talk to people about, think about a time when you did take a day off for yourself. Whatever you did, you spent a day with women friends or whatever it is. And how did you feel when you came back to your kids and everybody had said, it felt great. And I said, when we take care of ourselves, we're less likely to lose our temper. We are more patient. Things that make us angry suddenly don't, because when we're short with people, it's always something else going on. I mean, I used to say to people, that's a cue to you to take care of yourself, because your children are worth it. We only have one chance to raise these kids, and they deserve, as I keep saying, they deserve to see the best of us. And the best of us is taking time out to do the things that we enjoy, to take time to be with people that nourish us and that lift us up, all of those things. And so that we're better for the people that we love and want to spend time with. So we are no longer raising young children, but I think those same principles apply to all of these relationships that involve caring for somebody else.
As you're talking, I'm thinking about the episode we did on what are you tolerating?
Yes.
Right? As you to think about your own self-care, what are you tolerating? What's draining your energy that you could perhaps fix in a minute, I was at my daughter's house a little while ago, and I asked her that question. She said, well, I could use a couple of light bulbs in the bathroom. I'm like, okay. You know what I mean? But just these small things that we tend to just put off, just ignore, put up to the side, and just taking care of those small things can free up some energy. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, because the small things just nag at us. Before we went on air, I was telling about the various things that have gone wrong in my house this week that is driving me crazy. One of them has been dealt with. Phew. So, yeah, those little things. That is all part of self-care. Let me look after this. So I looked up, what are some examples of good self-care, and I added some of my own. And Denise, chime in anytime. One of the big ones, and I think this applies to everybody, is learning how to say no.
Boundaries.
Boundaries. And examine your boundaries. Do I have good boundaries? And I remember when I was learning about coaching, a boundary is one of the definitions I learned and I held on to is protecting your sacred space. Even though it might disappoint somebody when you have to say no, but that is part of self-care. No, I can't babysit today. No, I can't take mom out today. No, I can't be at hospice for 4 hours today. And it's okay to do that. And being unavailable can mean I'm tired. I'm burnt out.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm not
No is a
available.
complete sentence. You don't.
No is a complete sentence. Exactly. No is a complete sentence. I mean, there's one problem I have when I say no to something. I have to feel like I have to give an explanation.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't. I think, oh, if I don't give an explanation, they're going to think that I'm making it up or something, that I don't, you know, uh, have a good reason. Well, and you don't have to have a good reason. Exactly. No is a complete sentence. For listeners, if you think you're somebody who isn't able to set boundaries or finds it really difficult to set boundaries, there is a lot. There's a wealth of information online about what that means, setting a boundary, and how you do it. Taking time to do the things that you enjoy and that give you pleasure, that is so important because everybody benefits. You're going to be more cheerful with your dying parent or your ill spouse or your grandchild that you're babysitting. Um, being fully aware of your limits. We all have different levels of stamina and tolerations. So, for some people, no, a 4 hour visit is too much. I can't do it. Somebody else, that's what they want to do. They want to stay there all day, every day. Not everybody is cut out to do that.
Mhm.
I mean, did you find that, Denise, in hospice?
Oh, sure. There were people that family members that would move in, and then there were family members that would come and go. An instrumental graver is they are doers. They can't just sit. So if their mother or partner is in, or friend or is in hospice, they'll be the ones that are going to get talk to the funeral home, or they're running home to do the laundry, or they're taking the dog for a walk, or they're doing things.
They want
That's what
tasks.
that's right. They want tasks. And then there are other people that sitting and doing those sits with people is how they take care of themselves and the person who is dying. So yeah, everybody's different. Even with my husband and I, my husband is he'll pop in for a visit and then leave and then come back later. Like he's a back and forth, whereas I'm
Mm-hmm.
very good. I can just do the long vigil sit kind of thing. So, but just in terms of self-care, I don't want to get too down the road of hospice. Just in terms of self-care, one of the things to remember when doing things to take care of yourself is to acknowledge, as you're doing it, to acknowledge that you're taking care of yourself. Like help your brain acknowledge the goodness because we're wired to see the badness, which we've talked about before. Make sure though that even if your self-care is putting your hand on your heart and taking a deep breath or going away for the weekend, whatever it might be, make
Mm-hmm.
sure that you spend some time acknowledging that within yourself and give your brain the information that, yeah, I'm doing this. You're taking care of yourself as part
Mm-hmm.
of self-care. Yeah.
Being kind to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
When we're
Self-compassion.
giving to
Right?
other people so much, what are we giving to ourselves?
Yeah.
How are we exercising kindness to our own body, mind, and soul?
Yeah. When you start paying attention to that, it's amazing how that inner critic pops up. Boy.
Yeah, yeah. And it's absolutely not being selfish. If you need to take half an hour out or 10 minutes or whatever it is, this is this is caring for yourself. Alone time, also give yourself alone time to recharge. I mean, that's basically what we're talking about. But sometimes it's got to be, a day or maybe 2 days. Uh, yeah, just giving yourself that time always pays off. Knowing that there's times when you might disappoint people, but they get over it. No, I'm not able to babysit tomorrow, or I'm sorry, I need a break and I don't have it in me to give is okay.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
And that's just going back to boundaries.
Yeah. So I think a lot of boomers, now we're looking after our spouses or our sisters and brothers more than we would be, or our grandchildren more than we
Mhm.
would be, though, our own parents. Or
Parents, yeah,
so,
yeah.
yeah, it's kind of a
Those
different.
days are now over mostly.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So I'm thinking as a wife, I don't know that I could give myself 2 days if my husband was sick,
Mm-hmm.
right? That would not be good self-care because I'd be spending one of those days worrying about my husband,
Mm-hmm. Good
right? So
point.
to be mindful of what your capacity is, particularly being absent, is important too, right? Yeah. And some people have lots of capacity. Some people go to Mexico for and it's all fine. It's just to be it because um it can backfire.
Right. This wasn't worth it for me because I was worried sick the whole
Mhm.
time. So it didn't really serve me in the way that I wanted it to.
That's right.
Yeah, I remember when my dad was sick, and my mom hired somebody to come in and just be with him. Um, I don't know what it was, 2 or 3 days a week for a few hours. And that was so helpful. I mean, it let her kind of have her own life and
Mm.
shop or visit or whatever she wanted to do. But, that cost money, and
Right.
not everybody has that money. But if you do, those services are widely available. Sometimes people have friends who will step up, and that's wonderful. Why don't you go and take the afternoon off? I'll sit with your dad or I'll sit with your mom.
I
Um,
will say that there are some organizations that have volunteers that will do that.
oh,
So
well, those are
yeah,
good
we do.
resources.
Yeah, yeah. So in Prince George, our hospice does that. So yeah, just look. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, look.
Or ask around. Or, are there volunteer services that can sit with my parent? Or because the problem is I was just feeling so burnt out with the care that my mom required, even though she was in a facility, but there was still a lot. Like, certainly the first couple of years, I was just burnt out. And then you start to get resentful and you start to get angry and you start to get, oh no, oh, there's mom phoning again. Oh, and then you feel guilty, you feel
Right.
terrible,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
there's a whole mix of emotions that go with it. And I was talking to somebody a while ago that, said they're sad. Also, there's some resentment and then there's guilt and dealing with all those emotions at the same time. And I just said, that's normal. That's
Yeah.
everybody goes through that.
That is the piece that's important to remember. That is normal.
That is normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I've got a really good friend in hospice right now, and she's got 3 daughters who are absolutely wonderful. And they're on a rotation basis. They've got one has this day and this day, the other has they're all and they're in touch with each other. I mean, this is very sexist of me to say, but my friend who's in hospice said, "Thank God I had girls." I, I don't know if I had 3 boys that they'd be doing this. And that's unfair. Okay, I will own that because certainly there are a lot of young men that are very, very, very giving of their parents and take lots of time. But that was her comment is thank God I had, I mean, they're doing an exceptional job. Anyway, Denise, I was telling you about somebody that I follow on Instagram that she talks about affordable self-care. And I thought that I would quote from her, just some ideas. So her name is Dr. Jen Hardy. And what she does on her Instagram feed is she writes little tips on a post-it note. And that's every frame is a little tip. So here's one. I'll read you a few of them. Burnout doesn't fix itself after one relaxing weekend.
That's
So
true.
you need more than the one weekend. You will not be for everyone, and everyone will not be for you. And that's okay. So that's not maybe necessarily self-care, but it's part of, your self-talk. Somebody doesn't like me or they don't seem to like me or they don't want, well, that's okay. We're not for everybody. And that's
I
and
think that's
that's
really
fine.
good. I think that's really big self-care.
Is it?
I think,
Okay,
oh,
good.
absolutely. Yeah. I think so. Yeah. Just having the capacity to be able to say, yeah, no, that's not my jam.
It's not my jam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's important.
Here's another one. She says, if your growth isn't Instagrammable, then you are probably doing it right. Most of us are figuring out life as we go along. It's okay if you are too. So again, we'll relate it to this. We're figuring this out, and that's okay. I've never done this before. I've never been through this before. We're figuring it out. Downtime doesn't mean you're lazy. So that's a good one. You need downtime.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean you're lazy.
Yeah, my niece, she works out, and she was talking about how and she runs, and she was talking about how she had to stop, run, and then stop, and then run, and then stop. And I said, you understand that rest is part of the workout. Like it's
Yep.
part of the workout. Oh, yeah. So that kind of gave her a different framework to look at what she was doing. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, you said you need time to reboot, you need time to rest. And I think most, fitness people will agree with that. I know there are people that are at the gym 5 days a week, but there are a lot of people say that is absolutely not necessary, and your body needs a break
Mhm.
and change it up.
But it's a good line just in life.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
rest is important.
Rest is really
Yeah,
important.
rest is
And I'm finding the older I get, the more important it is.
yes.
Let's see. It's better to accept uncertainty when you don't know something than make assumptions about what someone thinks and or feels. That's a good one. Yeah, they're all really good. It's okay if you don't give your family front row seats to your growth. That's good. Anyway, some of these will apply to a caregiving or parenting or grandparenting, and some of them won't, but she's very good. So Dr. Jen, Jenn Hardy, Hardy, and she's on Instagram.
Well, I think a lot of the focus that we've talked about today is towards people who are caring for someone, or
Yeah.
whether it be grandchild or spouse, but just in life in general, for those of us who aren't caring for anybody right now, to remember that caring for yourself is as important as anything else, and that there are ways that you don't have to spend a lot of money to care for yourself, but
Not
just
at all.
give yourself permission. Give yourself permission to whatever that looks like to you.
Right. And you don't have to justify it to anybody.
No.
I have a nap every day, and I don't
Wondering if you were going to say that. I was waiting for you to say that.
My babysitting duties. My little guy, up until just recently, would nap for at least 2 hours. I just lived for it. Like, oh golly, because it's a 9 hour day. When it's a full day, it's 9 hours. And I just lived for the naps. So he's not napping anymore, and I'm just jeez. Anyway, okay, Denise, what are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts, just to give yourself permission to care for yourself, whatever that might look like. For me, I make sure I wake up before anybody else does in the morning, so I have my time to do whatever the heck I want.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a course, sometimes I sit quiet, but yeah, just give yourself permission and find a way, because you're worth it. You're worth it. No matter.
You're worth it. Yeah, absolutely. I think that when you do look after yourself, you take time for self-care and spend some time figuring out what that means for you, because it's going to be different for everybody. Whatever it is that fuels you, being with certain people, doing certain things, and know that when you take time to look after yourself, you have more to give to the people that you love and care for.
I have one more final thought.
Yeah.
You tweaked me, because we didn't talk about this at all. Being social is a really important part of well-being. So
yes,
to make sure that you're finding ways to spend time with people that you do care. Just really.
It's certainly what nurtures me. Is I am fueled by my relationships, and I'm very, very fortunate that I have many. And our Sunday morning talks, Denise, they nurture me and give me so much, and I sit with it for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they're wonderful.
Yeah,
and we've been doing them for decades now.
We can say decades. Yeah.
We can say decades, 25 years. Has it been 20? Well, certainly 20.
Yeah. No, what?
25, don't we?
Okay.
We started I think we started in 2000.
When you started coaching, whenever that was it 2000?
Yeah, it was 2000, 2001. Yeah.
Yeah.
Denise, thank you again for coming on. And I know you came on just recently and being willing to come on again so soon after. I appreciate it so much.
It's an honor to be invited. So thank you very much.
And it's an honor for us.